I think we landed on some good theme music. Okay, welcome to Dynasty 365, the Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast for the Fantasy and Frames Podcast Network. I'm Brian Ford. I'm joined by my co-host Tyler Heil. Tyler, how you doing?
Good, man. I'm hyped up after listening to that intro song. Yeah, I agree with you. We landed on some good music, and I'm especially pumped to get into the roster building stage of Dynasty Fantasy Football.
So, all right. So before we unleash the nerd, let's just lay the groundwork here for folks who are watching and listening. We're going to be doing our first free agent primer of the offseason. This one is going to be quarterbacks and running backs, but we're going to split it up into two segments or two halves, if you will. We're going to do sort of a mini show on quarterbacks and then a mini show on running backs. So if you're watching in the stream, there'll be a new stream pop up after we're done with the quarterback side. And if you're listening on the podcast, you're going to keep an eye out for the second part of the episode. So here we go. It is the off season. It is Tyler's time to shine. So what gets you so into the off-season team building aspect of things, free agency, the cap, and that sort of stuff?
So I think the most fascinating part about it, I mean, not just the whole organizational philosophy and all of that kind of thinking, is there's not one right way to do it. There's so many different ways to skin a cat with this type of thing. And it's always fun to go into off seasons to kind of see like the more poorly run franchises. They're going to try to go and like maybe emulate or copy the team that won the Super Bowl the year before. Like someone's going to try to go trade a bunch of picks for a good quarterback, thinking that'll get them over the hump, not realizing that they don't have like an all-time great defensive tackle and the best corner in the game like the Rams do. The year before that, the 2020 Bucks, Tom Brady's aren't just falling off trees. So, he had a difficult time doing that. The Eagles were a good example where, they won it with Nick Foles. So teams were like, oh, RPO. That's literally all anyone said for like literally 6 months. It drove me crazy. Right? And teams were thinking they could win Super Bowls with mediocre quarterbacks. And, that just doesn't happen very often. It's actually pretty rare. You usually have to have a top 10 quarterback to win the Super Bowl. So, are teams going to spend big in free agency? Are they going to go big on draft capital and try to build their team through the draft? Or are they going to go less need and say, fuck them picks and just throw all caution to the wind and, just get whoever they think is going to make their team better? So, there's not one right way to do it, like I said, and it's just fascinating seeing how some of these guys do it because obviously, they're NFL GMs and they're extremely smart people, and most of them are pretty deserving of their positions. And I just find it fascinating to kind of get a glimpse into their mind of how they're thinking.
Yeah, and it really, I sort of appreciate and respect your patience to get like so detailed into cap numbers and that sort of thing. But in the free agency calendar, what are some important dates for us to look out for?
So the big thing just for several big things for the next few months, obviously the combine started today. They're getting underway with all of the medicals and interviews and getting everyone organized and all that good stuff. The other big one is actually a week from today. This is moving so fast, man. This is sneaking up on me real quick. But the franchise tag deadline is a week from today on March 8th. So, you're going to be looking at people like Devontae Adams, Mike Gesicki, Chris Godwin, players like that. Are they going to get franchise tags? Are they going to sign long-term deals? Or are they going to hit the open market? I'm excited to see that. March 14th to 16th is what the NFL literally calls legal tampering. So it's the start of free agency on March 14th. people just can't sign contracts.
Right. Yeah.
So March 16th is when at 4 p.m. is when free agency actually starts. That's when you'll hear, okay, these 10 top of the market guys already somehow worked out these massive deals and all of these contract negotiations in 1 minute. So that's what they're doing in the legal tampering period.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Couple more. April 4th, offseason workouts for first-year head coaches begin. April 20th, that's when teams need to finish up with their draft visits. April 22nd, that's the deadline for restricted free agents to sign offer sheets. And I mean, that I can explain that more if we want, but restricted free agents is essentially you're staying with the same team.
Yeah.
You can sign an offer sheet, but that your team that retains your right and extended an offer to you has right of first match. You can sign whatever you want. That team just says, okay, we'll pay you that. Yeah. April 28th, big day, draft in Vegas. And then May 2nd is a very big day. It's the deadline to pick up the 5th-year option.
Okay.
So, big one this year is going to be Daniel Jones. It doesn't sound like the Giants are going to pick him up. That's kind of been the whispers that I've been hearing and the rumors. There was actually an interview for Joe Show and the Giants' new GM today that essentially said, we'll trade absolutely anybody. Because Dave Gettleman absolutely annihilated that roster. That roster is in terrible shape cap-wise and just talent-wise. So they're going to be digging out of a 2-year hole. And I'd say the Giants are going to be pretty active, changing their roster quite a bit.
Okay. Right on. And, just keep your eye out during this offseason, that the stretch that Tyler was just talking about. We'll have a podcast reacting to the combine. We'll have another free agent primer. We'll have a draft preview. The entire Fantasy and Frames crew is going to have a stream on draft night. So, we don't sleep in the offseason. So let's now move to the sort of first big chunk of our main event tonight, and that's the quarterbacks. So you've identified for us some teams that need starters and some teams that might need a quarterback but not quite a starter. Why don't you name a couple from each category?
So starters, I think the ones that people have been really discussing are Broncos and Steelers, really at the top of the list. Everyone's kind of waiting to see what they're going to do, what's going to happen with potential trade targets, but I think they're discussed more than anyone. I actually put the Bucs in there in need of a quarterback because, apparently Tom Brady's retiring, but spoiler alert, I don't think the Bucs are going to need a quarterback. So we'll see what happens.
Ooh, spicy.
High-end backups and potential starters, essentially teams that need someone to push their starter or have a starter that just is kind of – he's not the guy or could be the guy. So, Browns with Baker Mayfield. Can Baker get back to the level that he played at in 2020? I don't think the Browns can go into the season without addressing the position. Colts with Wentz, Giants with Daniel Jones. So, yeah, there's still a lot of open seats in the quarterback musical chairs game.
All right. Is there any one team that stands out from either of those categories as being like either particularly needy or one that is in a particularly good position to acquire a quarterback, whether in multiple ways, draft capital, free agency, could trade? Is there anybody who kind of has that flexibility?
I think the Broncos are essentially willing to pay whatever it will cost, and maybe even more than that. The Panthers, I think David Tepper David Tepper might cut off his left hand to get any of these top guys that are potentially on the trade market. So yeah, I think the Panthers are they're going to be very aggressive.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to get to the actual quarterback players. We've set the stage on who needs a quarterback. Now we're going to talk about the free agent quarterbacks and where they might go according to our prognostication. So, Tyler, start us out with one of yours.
All right, so I'm going to start at the top of my list with someone that I have not completely given up on yet, and that is Mitchell Trubisky. He had a rough go of it in Chicago, and he showed some flashes. He showed that he has some athleticism. He has some good arm talent. He tends to get a little rattled, but maybe that had something to do with the terrible coaching job Matt Nagy was doing. So I still have faith in him to go to a situation that might give him a chance to play. I think the best fits for him, honestly, are the Giants. That's the easiest one. The Bills offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, is now the Giants head coach, and they're rumored that the Giants aren't going to pick up Daniel Jones' fifth-year option. So, kind of maybe see what they have in him if they bring him in on a one-year deal, like he signed in Buffalo. If Daboll liked him, if he doesn't go to the Giants, that makes me a little scared for Trubisky. Okay. The second team for him that I think could be a fit is actually the Browns. I know Mitchell Trubisky went to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, for college, but he grew up in Cleveland. He went to high school in Mentor, Ohio. He was a Mentor Cardinal. That is about 10 miles east of Cleveland. So, potential hometown boy going back. And, and I think he's kind of at that stage where he's not coming in and people are saying, oh, he could start. He's coming in to be a high-end backup that's going to push Baker and say, hey, your leash is a little short right now. You need to pick up your game, or we have someone that can take over for you.
Right on. And so I think, with Trubisky, for me, again, I agree, as somebody who I haven't completely given up on, and I have him still stashed on a couple of rosters, thinking he could be a high-end backup. He could get a spot start, that sort of thing. And, I think he's somebody definitely to keep an eye on. The first person that I'm going to talk about is Fitzmagic, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yeah. So there's a really good chance that I don't know about really good. I'm not in his home making these decisions, but I wouldn't be surprised if Fitzpatrick retired. But let's say he doesn't, right? I could see him as a backup on a number of spots that you mentioned on that list. I think he could push Baker, although he kind of has a big presence. So do the Browns want to have a big presence when Baker's already shaky? I don't know what the management would think of that. You would know better than I. I think the Colts could make sense. They could. I don't think that they're willing to. Well, I don't know about that. They're pretty win now, so I don't know that they're very comfortable with Ellinger, and I don't think they would dismiss bringing in Fitzpatrick. Lions and Titans, also other teams that could make sense. He could mentor the rookie that the Lions will probably bring in after 2022 and get rid of Goff. So my final decision, however, is the Colts. They're a win now team. They have the cap cash. They're not very satisfied with Wentz. I do think it. I do wonder how Chuck it Fitzpatrick would gel with such a run heavy team. But I of the spots I was thinking about, that's the one that I landed on.
Yeah, I like it. I think the Colts could bring in another wide receiver, and he could have the opportunity to chuck it, as you say. YOLO balls.
Who's next on your list?
So next on my list, I'm going to go ahead and talk about Marcus Mariota. Not a super exciting name.
Sure.
And it's fun how it transitions, but I think the best fit for Marcus Mariota might actually be Frank Reich and the Colts.
Okay.
Maybe they have a thing for failed number 2 picks. I don't know. But, in reality, they need to do something at the position. They're kind of in the same boat as the Browns, where the guy they have likely isn't the answer. I think Wentz is more decidedly not the answer than Baker is. Mm-hmm. But I think Mariota is still a talented player. He's never going to live up to that number 2 pick billing. But having a competent quarterback that can fill a role that would be very valuable for the Colts. The only thing I'd say about Mariota is he took a pay cut in Vegas to remain a backup to Derek Carr. So maybe he's comfortable just being a backup for 10 more years.
Well, listen, being a backup quarterback in the NFL is more lucrative than anything I do, so I couldn't blame him. By the way, I just pause button here. Stop pandering to the Cleveland area high school football fans. Okay, so let's just okay. So the next guy I'm going to talk about is Jameis Winston. I looked at this list and I said, I think he's maybe the only guy who has a chance of landing a starting job, but certainly I think the most likely. The Saints, I don't think that's going to happen. There's a new regime there. They're in really bad cap situation. I think he probably leaves there. And I think that team is going to be, well, that's another story. I think Washington is interesting. They have the 9th best cap situation. They do have pick number 11, but I could see them, using that pick for something else instead of waiting for a rookie quarterback to develop and then going and signing a Winston or trading for a Russ Wilson. Panthers we've talked about already. They do have Darnold there. They did pick up his 5th year, but they like you said have an owner who's committed. They do have pick number 6, so that kind of maybe makes me think: are they going to try to go for a rookie there? And there's less room for Winston. My final decision is Washington Commanders.
Ooh, I like
yes. Jameis Winston will help Terry McLaurin, and they'll still need another wide receiver threat to help both Winston and McLaurin. But that is where Winston lands for me.
All right. How dare you disrespect Curtis Samuel like that?
Listen, I liked Curtis Samuel. I said he was a buy in the offseason, but you got to get on the field.
Yeah, true. So my next guy that I'm going to talk about is Teddy Bridgewater. So I threw the Saints in there. I think he still has a lot of connections there. I know it's a new regime, but the new head coach is the old defensive coordinator. The new offensive coordinator is the old quarterbacks coach. So there's actually a lot of continuity there.
Right on.
So, maybe that could play a role for Jameis Winston too, but Teddy Bridgewater had a lot of success when he was in New Orleans. He looked good when he was on the field with Michael Thomas. Granted, I don't think you can remove Sean Payton from that formula, but it's very possible he could go back there. One other team that I think needs mentioning with Teddy Bridgewater, because, Teddy Bridgewater is like, what is he? The 25th best quarterback in the NFL, and that's that. Maybe the 22nd. Is the Steelers.
Okay.
Mike Tomlin is going to compete. He took that team to I think it was a 9-7 record with Mason Rudolph at the helm. So barring some other big changes in the quarterback trade market that I'm not sure are going to happen, I think Teddy is a competent guy that can hold down the fort for them with a solid offensive around him of Najee Harris and Pat Freiermuth and Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson. And hopefully they actually address that offensive line with their $30+ million worth of cap space, because Lord knows they need it.
Sure.
So, Teddy, my pick would be the Steelers, but that's barring if they don't make a trade that I actually think is possible.
Okay. Speaking of possible quarterback trades, we're going to wrap up the show talking about the trade market for some of these quarterbacks. There are a couple that I think everybody's talking about that could be traded, and then a few that are more of a maybe situation. So which of the big two do you want to talk about first?
So to clear up any confusion, the big two that will be traded are Jimmy Garoppolo and Deshaun Watson. There are other names obviously on the quarterback trade market, but those are the two that, Jimmy will be traded. They've already discussed it. It's already come out. The Niners are going to work with him and find him the ideal location. Mm-hmm. Jimmy is, I think, the best possible fit right now. barring an Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers is everyone's best possible fit
Mm-hmm.
for the Steelers.
Yeah.
He is basically Ben Roethlisberger plus, and Ben Roethlisberger from 2021 managed to get them to the playoffs. So I think Jimmy could play at a higher level than Ben did last year. He won't, just randomly fall over in the pocket for no reason. So, that's an upgrade. But I think he would play well in that offense and certainly play it at a higher level than Teddy Bridgewater would. So that's actually my favorite landing spot right now for Jimmy.
Yeah, probably me too. I see a few folks sort of, matching him up with the Steelers. So let's talk about this Deshaun Watson situation, right? I'm really interested in this stuff. I did sort of an informal poll on Twitter about like what are the chances that, he's playing by say early to mid 2023. You were low on that relative to some other folks. He's got that legal stuff going on. Houston has supposedly had a huge asking price for him during negotiations with the Dolphins. I'm wondering what is the size of the market and who are the teams that would, could and would make that move for somebody with these situations lingering and have the draft capital to do it. And I don't know that market's very big.
It's not huge. A team that does have 3 first-round picks is the Eagles. Will they just throw Jalen Hurts to the Wolves? I don't know. I mean, if I had a chance to get Deshaun Watson on my team and all it took was 3 first-round picks, maybe a player, and throwing Jalen Hurts to the Wolves, I'd do it in a second.
Wow. Okay.
That's not considering any of the legal trouble, but just the level of player Deshaun Watson is, I would absolutely. I'd be crow hopping those first round picks of the Texans.
Okay. Yeah. So any other teams come to mind or no?
We kind of mentioned it with the Panthers. I think they will pay whatever it takes to get a high level quarterback on that team. And they've already shown they're willing, they are more than willing to overinvest in that position. And that could be fun.
Okay. I think it's an interesting note to land on. It's one that I think bears watching. It will be one of the most interesting stories of the offseason. So that is going to wrap up our first half of this primer with the quarterbacks, and we're going to move on to running backs on a new stream. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you after the non-commercial break.